Welcome to this session, Voices Around the World from the LGBTQ plus community. I'm here today with friends from Denmark, the Netherlands, and England, and today they will be exploring the topic, is being gay really just a thought? We hope you'll enjoy it.
Hi, my name is Roger, and I am from the Netherlands. I'll be starting this conversation today. When we were exploring what to talk about for this session, we came up with the question, well, what if being gay or if lesbian or trans fill in the blank it's just a thought. And I remember my reaction to that question was that's kind of interesting, because I've been exploring the three principles for a while now, getting a deeper understanding and seeing in many aspects where thought, where I can see that it's thought. I'm always looking at thought, and then but it kind of causes a sort of conflict to the idea that I'm born gay. That's what I always thought. And so I would love to look into that, because for me the question is, being gay just a thought? I think the word just is also very interesting, because thought is, it creates everything. So it's not just thought for me. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's really interesting to dive deeper, especially if you're, new to the three principles, and maybe you're gay, lesbian, transgender, or bi, and then you sort of feel conflict there with yourself, with your identity. So maybe it can be helpful to listen to today's topic. So I don't know if anything comes up with one of the other speakers would like to jump in.
Hey, Roger. So my name's Al. I'm from the UK. And I loved when this topic name was suggested. I loved the idea of this, because it's got a little bit of kind of, cheekiness to it and a bit of resonance. But specifically for me, because I really went through some angst a few years ago. I've been around the principles for about 5 or 6 years, something like that. And I've been a facilitator, and I've talked about it a lot. And I guess that I've tried at some point, even if it hasn't come up naturally in all parts of my life, I've tried to kind of see where the principles are at work. And when I started to apply what might be happening to my sexuality, it was interesting, because I had to kind of think, well, can I just let go of everything that I know about my sexuality? Is that possible? Is it useful? Is it relevant? And I don't know the answer to that, but I know I looked at it, and for a while I went through some angst about, perhaps I'm not gay. For all of these years, I've only ever had relationships with men, but perhaps there's something that I've been missing or overlooking. And after about a year of kind of just allowing that to, slosh around a bit, what I saw was that what was useful for me to question gently, and then maybe to let go some of, was my cultural connection to my gayness. Some of the things that I'd learned, not just kind of what would traditionally be negative things, kind of internalized homophobia and all of that kind of stuff, but also just some of the cultural things that I thought were useful at some point about being gay. And I realized that actually some of that stuff was holding me back. And it's so subtle. It's difficult for me to kind of really kind of catch hold of it and talk about it. But I mean, for instance, I thought that if you're a gay, then you necessarily didn't get on very well with your family and you chose your family elsewhere. So those deep friendships that you had, you know, for me, it was kind of ex-partners and they were my family. And I had this chosen family and it was a kind of it was a very positive thing. And I loved the idea of that. But then I realized that this chosen family in some way was overshadowing my more difficult relationships in my own family. And that it was a good idea for me to allow some more compassion into those relationships. So it allowed me not to have an either or so much. You know, I'm gay, so therefore I have this. And this is okay because I haven't got that. It allowed me to have more of, oh, okay, so I can have that because I do love my chosen family. I love them as deeply as I love my family. But I can also go and have a look over here at some of the relationships that I thought they had a lid on them now. You know, they were painful at some point in my past, often because of my, you know, kind of difference, my gayness, my feeling of being on the edge of everything. And yet now I can go back and have a look at those relationships and have more compassion for them and have more compassion for myself and for the people involved, right? So I don't have to have either or anymore. I can have a bit of everything. And to me, that's what the principles points to in all of our relationships, right? It allows us to have anything that comes up for us when it comes up, even if it's something that hasn't felt like it's been possible before. And I've just lost my dad, right? And now I can feel how my dad was trying to reach out for me in his clumsy way decades ago, over and above his intellectual understanding of what it was like to be gay. He blasted through that a good few times and said things to me that kind of wiped away my understanding of me being gay and just went, I love you, you know? But he did it in this clumsy way and it didn't fit with my understanding of the world because I had this understanding of the world that was culturally gay and he should use these words. And now, of course, now he's gone. Luckily, before he went as well, because it was kind of obvious that he was going. So I was able to have these conversations with him. I was able to have that deeper relationship with him and forget about the fact that he was clumsy. Because he wasn't. He was just being loving. He was speaking to me in a way that he understood. And it was just as loving and as deep and as wonderful as, you know, people using the right words, right? So that's the ultimate relationship that I was able to have that maybe I couldn't have so deeply before.
Hi, I'm Steve, and like Al, I'm from England, only with a Scottish accent. I just want to say thank you, Al, first of all, for sharing in the way that you did. That was very touching, and thank you. It's such an interesting topic, and it's something I've been around the principles for 13 years now, and it's something so I've been with coming up actually this month, the 19th of this month, my partner Tony and I would have been together 19 years. And both of us have been, I'll use the word challenged. Well, it's just a thought, isn't it? You can just change being gay. And of course, the first time I get into thought, because it was everything that I had built up. All my fighting as a young teenager over this identity of which seems to be different from everybody else, the struggle to keep my isolation, to keep my purpose of who I was. You mean I've been fighting all those years for nothing? And then I was asked to do, about 2 years ago, I was asked to do as part of a program, I was asked to speak about what it was like being gay and see through the eyes of the principles. And the person who was hosting it started talking about the LGBT community and how it's really important and so on. And something just hit me. It's like, you know, we've been put into a community that we didn't ask to be put into. We've been defined, extra defined, not in healthy ways in that outside world. And know when you have that insight into seeing a new glimpse of reality, it seemed to take the sting out a little bit of the identity of living up to who I created. My benchmark, I could never reach, because I'd built this persona so strong that I set myself up to not enjoy all the time the aspect of being gay. So my usual fashion, I like to get quiet. When something doesn't make sense to me, because I realize in that quiet is where we really meet who we all are. And I've got to realize that through every experience that we have, that quietness was always there. And I was so busy chasing my tail, looking for it through meditation, being a teacher of meditation. And I found so many beautiful moments, but it looked like the butterfly when you try to kind of grab it and all of a sudden it was gone. So it meant that I had to work even harder on myself. So by the time my background is psychotherapy, but by the time that I had got to hearing about the principles, I just wasn't interested because it was another thing to put on top of, another identity to actually take, another thing to learn. And then in my glimpses of seeing our true nature, what I began to understand is our expression of consciousness. Is that I can call myself what I want. That's my experience. But I begin to see that this identifying as being gay, I don't know if I do. I don't feel the need to walk up to everyone that I see and say, "Hi, I'm Steve and I'm gay." Just as well, the same as my non-gay friends. They don't come up and introduce themselves as that. So I began to see that identity that I put on myself through this expression of consciousness, of awareness of what I was doing to myself. But the great thing about it was like from Roger saying and from Al saying there, I can hear myself in there. Different story, but I can hear glimpses of myself in there. And what it allows me to do is from that is then is see that these three beautiful spiritual gifts are three in one. Is that not at any moment whatsoever was mind still not gifting me with love, still not gifting me with thought. Even though it looked like I was in a different direction looking for it, that moment where I had that first insight, I saw remembering love. And I saw the oneness of love. And I saw everyone there. And I saw the purity of what Sid would point to when we say that the purity of thought is soul, the purity of consciousness is soul, and the purity of mind. And that's something for me, it was always like, oh, when I grow up, I'll understand that. And then it was like, well, there's another thinking. So I started being able to be a sacred observer of every thinking that I had. And then I forgot. And then I remembered. And then I forgot. And then when I started listening to other people, it was like, that seems to be human nature. And that's not because I'm gay. So I could drop that title of the stories of this happens to me because. And you know that wonderful expression, I was thinking of this today in a conversation that I had. And how I don't know if this is how it says, but I quickly scribbled it down while I got it. But fear knocked at the door, love opened, and nobody was there. And for some reason it hit me, nobody was there. This body wasn't there. The spiritual essence of who we are was there. So when I get to sit with myself, I'm aware of what I can do to myself. And I don't have to title it good or bad. It just is. And I'm aware that every single person does the same. So when I'm asked, is being gay just a thought? Sometimes. And sometimes it feels very real. But what I've seen in these years is that I don't have to know it all. And that was such a blessing, to get away from this curse of who I was because of everything that happened to me, to realize really when people were saying innocently what we do to ourselves, me too. So being gay was just dropped again. So my looking at is being gay just a thought? Well, as what Roger said, is everything is thought, then yes, but so is not being gay a thought. So is not being bisexual, so is not being transgender, so is not being lesbian. So it just really got me to see it's like, I just want to hang up and show up as the person, regardless of who you are. Because everything that I've seen isn't how I've seen it is precious to me. But they also have precious stories too. That's where I started looking through in the world, not to define who we were, but to get a glimpse of who they're seeing themselves in the moment. And that seems, I think, within our communities, we don't seem to have those many conversations like that. From what I've seen, when I talk to people, it doesn't seem that someone who says, come and rest with me for a while and let me really see who you want to be in the moment. It's too busy defining, I need to, and where that can be really good in some moments. But if we're really talking about thought, it's the 3 in 1. So there is something even bigger than that at play with each person listening to this, sharing here today. And that's what I love. Coming on this call and not knowing who was going to say what, who was going to share what, but knowing that life can begin to make sense in such a different way. And then it cannot. And that's, for me, I don't know, for consciousness seems to be really wanting to kind of ask me to just listen to it. So I think rather than, I just think remembering love is what I want to do. Because there were so many moments, I know when I look back in the misunderstanding of thought, that I didn't remember love. And I don't mean the love that, well, you bought me roses or chocolates, so that's great. I mean the love of who we are. And the love that we were born to be.
Wow, it's some really powerful stories, I think. My name is Catherine. I'm from Denmark, Copenhagen. And I am fairly new to the principles. I've been in this understanding for just a couple of years. And interestingly enough, for me, it hasn't brought up the question of me being a lesbian. I think I settled in that a long time ago. So I haven't really, I mean, those two worlds hasn't been brought together for me actually up until me joining this community, which is interesting, I think. But I think that question is being gay just a thought really got me thinking. Because I think it was you who said it, Roger, that it sort of implies that it's something we can just change. And that is that feels very provoking because it's not something that I can change, right? But I also thought, I mean, my immediate reaction to that question was, yes, it is just a thought. In the exact same way that heterosexuality is just a thought, right? To back your point up, Steve, that it's just that's just what it is. But the thing it doesn't stem from thought. It stems from love. So and that's a part I can't change. The direction of my love, I can't. It's not something I even wanna change. Why should I? Why should we even question love? That's such a weird thing to do, isn't it? I mean, really. And I think if I do go back to, you know, my teenage years and the struggles that I had back then of not being part of a norm, which is really what this is about, that you're sort of up against an established norm, which immediately makes you feel difficult. And that's also why I think so many of us spend time actually defining ourselves and trying to put words to who we are, and, you know, joining communities, other than also for the obvious reasons of meeting other people like-minded and maybe a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever you're into, right? But it was hard back then, and that created a lot of thought and a lot of back and forth and right and wrong and good or bad or shoulds and should nots, right? And I think now with my understanding of the three principles, that arguing in itself shows that this has nothing to do with who I am. So that's sort of a layer that comes on top of what that very clean feeling of love, right? A very sort of just that feeling that's just there. And that brings me back to that it's because it's love, it's not a question. It's not a question. So it's you can't ask that question, is being gay? Well, you can ask it, but there is no question, because it's what I feel, and it's love, and I'm, you know, it's not a question. It's how it is. Yeah. So, but it's been, I think it's interesting to explore, right? And maybe the final thing I'll say is that I think being gay kind of forces you into asking a lot of questions that many people who more so are born into or are a better fit for whatever norm they're born into. And I think all of us are in conflict with norms all the time. So it's not that straightforward, but so I'm also grateful for that, because it has allowed me to I guess see the world from a different angle, or you know, allowed me to explore something that is taken for granted or given for maybe the majority. I mean, from a sexuality perspective, for the majority of the people in the world, and that has taught me a lot. So I'm grateful for that. So yeah. So yes, it's just a thought, but so is heterosexuality, and in the end, it's not a question. So I think that's my take on the situation.
My name is Morten. I'm from Denmark. So is being gay just a thought? I've been thinking about it while you guys have been speaking so beautifully about it. And of course, the experience is a thought. But when I feel inside myself, it's so close to my core, my essence, that, you know, I'm not even a little bit in doubt. And what is feeling fresh for me right now is that I've been extremely hard on myself. Because the essence, the being gay, it's so pure. I see it so purely right now, and all of the noise around it, which have been a big thing for me, that is the thought part about it. That is the concepts we have been learning from child until now. I had a chat with Elle the other day, and I somehow realized that I've always seen myself as out of the closet, but maybe I'm not, because it's somehow always have been a big thing for me to talk about, a big thing to talk at least to new people about. And right now I just see that it's all those thoughts around the sexuality or the being gay that has been so incredible hard. And I see this judging myself. And I think it's going to change something for me, because it's somehow easier for me to now see that when I get these thoughts, this I'm trying to find the English word for it. Yeah, it's gone right now. But when actually saying to people that I'm gay, I always my brain is like running 200 miles per hour to think about the consequence thought, and I actually think it will be easier for me now that I have seen this in the essence, to recognize that it's just this and now I forgot the word again, but this thought when it's coming around. So of course the experience is a thought, but being gay is not a thought for me. It's who I am.
So if I may share what I've been, has been coming through while you all were talking, is that something became very clear to me, which is, I think this question, is being gay just a thought? What popped up to me is, would we ask that question about breathing? Is breathing just a thought? You know, is needing oxygen just a thought? That's kind of a silly question. And what you were sharing, Morten, was that the fact, like, if we even have to take apart what is gay or lesbian or transgender or bisexual. Like, it's well, let me just keep it for myself. Like, gay for me in the purest essence is that I apparently fell in love with a man, and we consider that, because I'm also a man, we consider that gay. That's it, full stop. But what makes it tricky, and what makes perhaps this question come up for you as you're listening to this, is because all those layers of thought around it that make it so much more complicated. You know, things have like, yeah, predicting the future, what's going to happen to people if they find out, or if I share it with them. And for me, it's very clear that that is definitely thought, and it's definitely helpful. That it has been helpful for me to identify when I'm looking at thought, and when I mistake reality for looking at thought, because it just poofs it away. It just disappears, because then I recognize that, you know, I'm just looking at smoke signals, and I'm afraid for the smoke signals. So, you know, that is, I don't even think the answer to the question is really important, because as you can already see here, there's different answers to it. But I think, you know, it's so powerful to see that the fact of being gay, well, if I give my personal answer, I see it like, I show up in the moment. And I guess in this moment still, I'm really in love with my husband. So I guess I'm still gay in this moment. You know, I do see that life is fluent. Nothing really is set in stone, except the fact that we are living, thinking creatures in consciousness, and there's this energy mind that is powering all of it. That is the only thing that's really set in stone. And the rest is fluent. But I do not assume that in a couple of years from now, I will be married to or dating a woman. But I also don't know. So, but yeah, I think so to come to why, like, if you ask this question yourself, I think it's much more useful or helpful to look at what is underlying this question. You know, what is behind this question, because I don't think it's just the fact being gay is that a thought. Like I said, it's, you don't ask that question about breathing. So I think it has to do more with all the things that make being gay so difficult for you right now. And it is helpful to see the areas where you are looking at thought, you know. Yeah, that's what I wanted to, this is what became very clear for me listening to you all. So thank you.
I love that, Roger. I love that. I love the conversation, because it's becoming clearer to me too, right? I love what Steve was saying, you know, that these principles are happening to us, around us, and it creates this, once we understand them just a touch, you know, when I first kind of stumbled across them, I just felt more compassionate. I felt more loving. I felt lighter. I didn't know why, certainly couldn't talk about it because I had no idea what I was talking about. But I just felt lighter and more compassionate, and that suddenly life was easier and lots of stuff just disappeared. And I really want to say how much I admire Morton for telling us his truth, because I think a lot of people are in that position where, you know, your physical sexuality is a kind of a done deal, but there's these other areas of it that seem just more complicated. I worked in prison for a while, and I didn't come out to everybody that I spoke to. It seemed to me like a good idea not to, you know? I would make the excuse to myself that, well, why would I put myself up as a person that this man, because I worked in men's prisons, why would I put myself up as a person that this person might just go, oh, well, because you're that, then I'm not going to speak to you. Because then that makes, you know, what I'm there for redundant. So why would I do that? But that's not true. Because what was true was that there was a fear of rejection or retaliation or violence or whatever it was. And that's what was driving the show at that point. But I didn't really want to see that. It wasn't convenient at the time for me to see that. So I did the best I could. And I'm compassionate towards the man that did the best he could. Just like I'm compassionate to anybody that finds themselves in a situation where they can't declare, or they don't think it's necessary to declare, or, you know, whatever it is. Because this is life. We see it, we don't see it. Just like Steve said, we see it, we don't see it. See it, don't see it. See it, don't see it. That's the game. And if we think it's anything else, I'm speaking for myself. If I think it's anything else, then I'm deluding myself. So I loved what Catherine said about a clear feeling of love. If it's love, it can't be a question. That really spoke to me.
Yeah, me too, that you stole my words, Al. I really love that. And you know, that the gift of these principles is that they're the gifts that keep on giving. We constantly can hear as if we've not heard before. We can feel like we've not, and we can see. And that's one of the things I've recently seen, is that when it comes to the ego, our conceptual understanding, our thinking, and so on, it looks like to me that our human nature always wants to find, create, be better, be bigger, be bolder. And that only happens in that world. But with our spiritual nature, there's a constant flow, that it doesn't have to improve. It doesn't have to be better. And I often wonder if our role is simply to understand how we can be more beacons of love in this world. And when I hear everyone speak here, this has been my vision, my hope, my dream, to have an LGBTQ+ community. And to hear people speak in ways that where my soul can become present, where my all-given love can be present. Yes, yes. Not like I want to grab what Catherine says, oh, right, oh, that was brilliant, or Roger, Morton. But I can see, yes, I can see you. Which means in order for me to see you, I have to see me first. In order for me to see love in you, I must experience that love. Whether I would have thought before, like, oh, I need to hang out more with you guys because I need more loving. It always looked like it was you that would give it to me. Until I really heard the nature of what Sid was pointing to. It was really true for me, regardless of what I was thinking. And I know where to look And I see more and more that people know that too. And that is such a beautiful thing, to know that consciousness is really playing its part. Because the more deeper, and I don't mean deeper as in you need to become deeper or more grounded, but what I just mean is that the more deeper we become, we transcend this form, this identity. And in that oneness, if we just say love, or is what I like to define soul, S-O-U-L, sharing our universal love. When we share that love, we have no identity there. But yet our being begins to experience it like the ocean kissing the sand for the very first time. Like you ever stood in nature and look at those stars, or watch when a flower just opens. Those are our moments where our identity just opens differently. And sometimes we will define that more, and other times we'll get lost in that defining it, and other times it just won't matter. But what I've just seen is the more I'm in consciousness and the more I lose this persona, then the more that need to define, and the more I get to experience the being of who we are. The spiritual, spirit you all be in this moment. I can't tell you I know what the moment is because it always looks different. So for me, that's what's beautiful about these principles is, I think it was Al that said at the beginning, or what I heard Al say at the beginning, it's not me in learning these principles that I can say these, it's the unlearning of who I made myself to be. And knowing that I have that potential, because the ego is very good at telling us the past and to be scared of just knowing that, yeah, I will have moments where that will look and feel so real. But I seem to have more moments now that I don't. And that's when we feel that nature of where Sid would point us to. That's where I know every single person on this call and who will be listening to this have had glimpses of their own truth. Do more of that. And when you hear Sid say things like, don't be a follower, that's the essence to follow. The whispers from your soul that you're hearing in the moment is what begins to allow you to come into mind, thought, and consciousness in this form. And maybe this is being a just a thought, doesn't have the sting in its tail that it once had, because it's love. I just feel it. I don't think it.
If I may give like we don't give advice, right? In the three principles, we describe how our experience comes to be. But as a practical disclaimer, at least what is very clear for me is that freedom, if you're struggling with your sexuality, which by the way, I just realized that I do sometimes also still have moments where in public where I kind of, this thought pops up, should I hug my partner or not? And then I see this big, strong, tattooed guy walking towards me. I'm thinking maybe not, which is not compassion, by the way, because I don't give this person a chance to to show up. But what I realize is that freedom from struggling with your sexuality is not to take away those types of scary thoughts that you have, because I still have those, but they're not, because I can see them now for what they are. I can see that there are thoughts in the moment and they come and go, and they're not very different. They're actually not different from any other thought that would come up. Like, oh, it's nice weather today. I know that the way that what they can create in the moment, the feelings is not the same as, oh, the weather's nice, I know. But the essence of it is the same. And I think it could be very helpful if you're still struggling with, thoughts like that, like shameful thoughts or scary thoughts about your sexuality. it's not a quest to get rid of them, but to see them for what they are, because you can then still have them. I still have them sometimes, actually. Actually, thank you, Martin, because I just realized when you were sharing that, I was like, wait a minute. I even say that it's not a deal for, like, I don't really consider myself gay anymore. It's not a label that I really think about a lot, but I do have moments, actually. Yeah, I do, but they're not bothering me. And so, yeah, I just wanted to share that, as maybe that could be helpful if you're still struggling with this. Yeah.
Well, I just got a thought that that this just as you said, Roger, this consequence thought when you walk down the street. It's not. It's just something. It must be something I'm scared about. Just as I could be scared about going down a steep water slide. And why I saw it is that I would be scared about going down a steep water slide. But a couple of weeks ago, I was on vacation, and I went up to the tower with the water slides, and I walked towards this water slide, and it was really steep. And I got the thought that, the scared thought. And somehow right now, those two thoughts look alike, and because I know what I know about thought now, I went straight ahead that thought and down the water slide. And it shouldn't be any different. And I think I will be better at that in the future, to see it as a thought, as a scared thought.
Wow, I think that's some super important points. Thank you for that, Roger and Morten, and really that I have to keep reminding myself that it is not the purpose to get rid of those thoughts. It is really just to see them, and by seeing them, creating that tiny distance between who you are and that thinking, right? So yeah, thank you for that.
I'm blown away by this. I would love to have called this session all about love, because that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing we are love. We just show up in different ways, and isn't that wonderful? How boring would it be if we all showed up in the same way? So that's what I'm hearing, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I have tears in my eyes. I've been so moved this whole conversation. I'm really grateful, and I think it's going to be so helpful to a lot of people out there. So thank you so much for this wonderful session, and I hope everybody listening will enjoy it. Thank you, everyone. Thanks so much.